You step off the plane, your boots hitting the tarmac of a place you used to call home. The weight of your duffel bag drags at your shoulders, but it's nothing compared to the weight of what you've been through. War. Your body is a patchwork of scars, some visible, some hidden, and all of them reminders of a time that still lingers like a bad dream. You're a veteran, a woman in a man's world, and this country promised you something more than this. There's no grand welcome for you, no parade to honor your service. Instead, there's a cold, indifferent air as you make your way through the airport. People stare, some glance away quickly, others let their eyes linger too long. You can feel the judgment, the unspoken question in their gaze. What's a woman doing in the military? But you didn't sign up for the applause. You didn't sign up for the praise. You signed up to serve, to protect, to fight for a country that you thought would stand by you when it mattered most. But the reality is far harsher. The real battle doesn't begin when you're deployed. It begins when you return. You remember the stories of soldiers coming home to heroes' welcomes, to warm embraces from grateful civilians. You remember thinking one day, that would be you. But instead, there's silence. No one seems to notice you, except for the occasional passerby who can't help but stare at the visible scars on your arm or the limp in your walk. You try to tell yourself it's nothing, that you've been through worse. But the words of your fellow veterans echo in your mind. Don't expect anyone to understand what you've been through, they'd said. They won't get it. They'll laugh. They'll mock. You push those thoughts down, but it's hard to ignore the quiet whispers as you walk through the airport. The feeling of being an outsider in your own country, it stings. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'd love to hear from you. But let's get to it. A female veteran returning home isn't a story often told. The mainstream media focuses on the grandiose moments, the celebrations, the reunions, the emotional breakdowns. But they don't tell you about the quiet ones, the ones who return and face not just the trauma of war, but the indifference of a society that doesn't know how to recognize her sacrifices. You remember a conversation you had with a fellow veteran a few months ago. He had been to war too. He'd served in a combat zone just like you, faced the same dangers. Yet, when he came back, he was immediately surrounded by friends, family, and even strangers who wanted to thank him for his service. You didn't get that. You didn't get the acknowledgement, the understanding. You got stares, whispers, and silence. The most you've received is a half-hearted thanks for your service from a stranger at a coffee shop, as though the words were just an empty gesture, a hollow formality. But even in the face of all this, you keep going. You try to push through the bitterness that bubbles up inside you. You tell yourself it's part of the process, part of adjusting to civilian life again. You can't let this get to you. You can't let them win. You never thought you would feel so alone in your own country, but the truth is, you feel more like a stranger now than you ever did in the war zone. You wake up to another morning of silence, the kind that settles deep in your chest and refuses to leave. The world moves on around you. People go to work, kids go to school, neighbors walk their dogs, but you're still stuck in this limbo. The battles you fought overseas are distant now, but the ones inside your own mind are constant. They don't tell you about this part of returning home, the disconnection, the feeling that no one really sees you. Not the real you, not the woman who served, who fought, who bled for this country. You've spent days and weeks trying to make sense of your place in this new world, but the puzzle pieces just don't fit anymore. You walk into a coffee shop and for a moment you think maybe someone will recognize the look in your eyes. Maybe they'll see the weight you carry in your step, the tension in your shoulders that never quite leaves. But all you get are glances, quick looks that seem to question, what's a woman like her doing here? You'd like to say it's none of their business, but it's hard not to feel like an outsider in your own skin. The scars you carry are more than just skin deep. You've got the physical ones, the ones that anyone can see, the ones that make people turn their heads when they think you're not looking. And then there are the invisible ones, the ones that show up when the lights are off, when the house is quiet, and your thoughts have nowhere to hide. They're the ones that leave you shaking, or staring at a wall for hours, or breaking down in the middle of a conversation with someone who has no idea what you've been through. One day, you're talking to a fellow veteran at the VA. It's supposed to be a routine checkup, just another trip to get the necessary paperwork in order. But something shifts in the conversation. She talks about how people don't get it, how they don't see the invisible wounds we carry with us. She's been through the same things as you, same combat, same fears, but she's facing something you can't even put into words. The system doesn't know how to help, or worse, it doesn't care. Do you think they even know? She asks, looking you dead in the eyes, as if she's searching for an answer you don't have. You wish you could give her one, but the truth is, you're not sure anymore. Do they even know what it feels like to come home and not be recognized? Do they understand that when a soldier's done fighting on the battlefield, the fight doesn't stop, it just changes? You're constantly at war with yourself, your identity, your pain. But to the world, you're just another woman walking down the street, trying to live a life that was never meant for you. It hits you then, the harsh reality. The fight never ends. Not really. You thought the battlefield was far behind you, but here, in the safety of your own country, you find yourself on another front. The real cost of war isn't the headlines or the medals, it's the quiet, invisible toll it takes on your soul. And the worst part? The world doesn't even notice. They don't see the constant battle in your eyes, the weight in your step. They don't see the way your breath catches when you hear a loud noise, or the way your hands tremble when someone touches your shoulder without warning. Even the system you fought for seems to forget you. You've filled out the paperwork, jumped through the hoops, but it's always the same. More waiting, more silence. The promises they made to you, to every soldier who fought and served, seem to evaporate in the face of bureaucracy. You're left wondering, does anyone really care? And even if they do, does it matter? You're one of many, one face in the crowd, and there's always another soldier to be ignored, another story to be forgotten. Yet somehow you keep going, you keep pushing through the fog. But it's exhausting. Every day you feel a little more invisible, and every day it becomes harder to hold on to the belief that things will ever change. You remember reading a post online one night, late into the evening when the world was still, and the silence of your apartment felt like a weight on your chest. A fellow female veteran shared her own story, her own struggles. She wrote about the mocking she faced, how people made light of her injuries, how they questioned whether she deserved the same respect as her male counterparts. She spoke of the loneliness that came with being a woman in the military, the constant battle to prove herself, to be seen as strong and capable, despite the overwhelming odds stacked against her. And you recognized her words as your own. The isolation, the doubt, the endless fight for recognition. It wasn't just you, it was all of you. All the women who served, all the women who sacrificed, only to be cast aside when they came home. But this post, it wasn't just about venting frustration. It was a call for change, a plea for the world to see the real cost of war, the cost on women like you. You could feel the raw honesty in her words, the pain and the defiance. It made you realize something. Maybe you weren't alone in this fight. Maybe, just maybe, if enough of you spoke up, the world would have to listen. The days drag on, one blending into the next. You've learned how to survive in the shadows, to carry your invisible wounds like a quiet secret no one asks about. But inside, it's a different story. The system, the people, they've all failed you. You watch the news, hear about the veterans who are given recognition, medals, or even the sympathy of the public. And yet you sit here, in the same room where you've spent countless hours waiting for appointments and responses that never come, wondering how long you can keep pretending that everything is okay. It's in these moments that you realize how much the world has neglected the real cost of war. Not the battles on foreign soil, but the battles that come after, the ones fought in silence. No one tells you how long the recovery is, or how steep the climb is. You thought they would. You thought the country that sent you to war would have a plan for when you came back home. But all you've been given is more paperwork, more waiting, more promises from bureaucrats who have no idea what it feels like to have your body and mind forever changed. You talk to other veterans at the local VA center, and you hear the same stories over and over again. Long wait times, forgotten claims, and appointments that get rescheduled so many times that you lose track of them. You wonder how many times they've been forced to relive their trauma, how many times they've been told that their injuries aren't as serious as they think. And you wonder why it's so hard for people to understand that the scars aren't just skin deep. No one talks about the constant nightmares, the unshakable anxiety, or the moments when it feels like you're drowning in memories. You think about the countless hours spent in therapy, trying to piece yourself back together. But no matter how much you try, there's always something missing. The public forgets that your service didn't end when you returned. The moment you took off the uniform, you thought you were done fighting. But in truth, the fight was just beginning. The invisible wounds left by war are the ones that never heal. And the people around you, your family, your friends, your community, don't know how to help. They don't understand the battle you're still fighting, the war that never really ended. The reality is, there's no easy way to explain the toll war takes on a person. It's not something that can be seen in a photo or measured in statistics. It's the long moments when you're alone, when the pain of the past comes rushing back and you can't escape it. It's the constant reminder that no matter how much you try to move forward, the past always has a way of catching up with you. You remember a story from a veteran's blog that you stumbled upon one night. It was a woman who had served overseas and faced her own battle with the system when she returned home. She spoke of the relentless efforts she made to get help, to be seen, to be heard. But despite all her efforts, she was dismissed, ignored, and left to fight her battle alone. It was a familiar story, one that echoed your own experiences. She described how, after years of struggling, she finally decided to take matters into her own hands. She started speaking out, raising awareness of the issues that veterans, particularly women, face when they return home. She wrote about how she met other veterans who had felt the same way, abandoned, forgotten, and left to deal with the aftermath of war in silence. Together, they started a movement, a group of women and men who shared their stories, their pain, and their experiences. It wasn't easy, but slowly they began to get noticed. Slowly, people started listening. That's when it hit you. Maybe you're not alone. Maybe, just maybe, if enough of you speak out, someone will have to listen. Maybe it's time to share your own story. Maybe it's time to finally break the silence and demand the recognition, the respect, and the support that every veteran deserves. You start small, talking to people who you know will listen, people who understand the pain. But the more you share, the more you realize something profound. The stories are always the same. The details might differ, but the struggle, the isolation, the pain, it's universal. And when you begin to speak about your experiences, to really tell people what it's like to return home as a female veteran, something unexpected happens. The weight starts to lift. It's not gone, but it feels a little less heavy when you're not carrying it alone. One day, you meet a fellow veteran at the VA, a woman who's been through the same struggles you have. Her name is Maria. She's a few years older than you, but you can tell she's been through the ringer. She's got the same haunted look in her eyes, the same battle-worn demeanor. She talks to you like you've known each other for years, even though this is the first time you've met. It's as if she's read your soul. You're not the only one, she says. We've all been there. It's time to stop pretending like it's not happening. Her words are a wake-up call, a jolt of clarity. It's time for change, and you're going to be part of it. As you continue to share your story, more and more veterans come forward. Maria's words echo in your mind, and with each new face that walks into your life, each new person who shares their pain, you begin to understand the depth of this problem. It's not just about you, it's about all of you. All the men and women who have fought for their country, only to return home to be discarded, forgotten, or mocked. The truth is, society doesn't understand the cost of war, not just the physical injuries, but the emotional, mental, and spiritual toll it takes on those who serve. But that's the thing about trauma. It's silent. It doesn't scream in your face like a battlefield explosion, but it lingers, it festers. And it's the kind of thing that people don't understand unless they've lived it. unless they've seen it in their own eyes, lived through the nightmares, felt the weight of it in their own bones. That's why so many people are able to dismiss it, to say things like you should be over it by now, or you're just making it worse in your head. They don't get it. They can't, because they haven't seen it firsthand. So when you decide to share your story, it's not just for you. It's for every woman who has come home and been treated like an outsider, like a stranger in her own country. It's for every person who has fought for this country only to be ignored by the very people they fought to protect. But more than that, it's about breaking the silence, starting a conversation that so many people have tried to avoid for too long. The conversation about the real cost of war, the one that no one wants to talk about. And it's not just about the military. It's about the way women are treated in every aspect of society. The constant battle for recognition, for respect. The assumption that because you're a woman, you're somehow weaker, somehow less capable than your male counterparts. You've had to prove yourself over and over again, not just to your fellow soldiers, but to society at large. And you're tired of it. Tired of being told you don't belong. Tired of fighting for validation. You've earned it. You've fought for it. And now, it's time to take a stand. One evening, you sit down with a group of fellow veterans at a local cafe. The conversation is easy, familiar. It's not about the war this time. It's about life, about what comes after. But the more you talk, the more you realize something. It's not just the system that's broken, it's the way people view veterans, especially female veterans. They don't understand the sacrifices you've made. They don't see the scars, the pain, the toll it's taken on you. And they certainly don't understand the weight of the silence you carry. But it's not just the silence that's killing you. It's the way people treat that silence. The way they assume that because you're quiet, you're okay. They don't know that every day is a struggle, that every moment is a reminder of the battles you fought, the things you lost. And they don't know that the quiet is a mask, a shield you put on to protect yourself from the world that doesn't understand. As the conversation continues, you begin to realize that it's not enough to just speak out. You need to do something. You need to take action. So you and your fellow veterans start organizing. You meet regularly, planning ways to raise awareness, to make people listen. You start reaching out to organizations, to local communities, to anyone who will listen. And slowly things begin to change. More and more veterans join the cause. More and more people start to understand. But it's not just about raising awareness anymore. It's about taking back your story. It's about reclaiming the narrative that has been stolen from you. For too long, society has written its own version of what it means to be a veteran. And for too long, that version has ignored the experiences of women like you. But now, you're writing your own story. You're standing up and saying, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. And you will listen. The support grows. It's slow, but it's steady. People begin to see that female veterans are just as worthy of recognition, just as deserving of respect as their male counterparts. They begin to understand that the cost of war is the same, no matter who you are. And slowly the narrative begins to shift. The stories you share, the voices you amplify, they start to make a difference. You see it in the way people treat you, in the way they listen when you speak. You see it in the conversations that are happening in communities, in the small shifts in the way people talk about veterans. It's not perfect, but it's a start. And that's all you need, a start. You finally begin to feel a shift in the way people look at you. The stares are less frequent now. The mocking is less noticeable. But most importantly, you no longer feel like a ghost. You no longer feel like you're fighting this battle alone. Because now, you know there are others like you. Others who have been through the same pain, the same struggles. And together, you're stronger than ever. It's not just a victory for you. It's a victory for all the women who served, for all the veterans who have been forgotten, for all the voices that have been silenced. And while the fight isn't over, it feels different now. It feels like, for the first time, the world is starting to see you. The world begins to take notice. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the tides begin to turn. For every woman who speaks out, for every veteran who shares their story, there is someone who listens. It's not just veterans who are stepping forward, but civilians, journalists, and even politicians who are starting to recognize the reality of the situation. It's happening. Change is beginning to stir. But with every step forward, there are 2 steps back. Not everyone is on board. Not everyone understands. There are still those who mock, those who belittle the experiences of female veterans. And you see it, feel it in the way people still whisper when they think you're not paying attention, in the way their eyes linger a little too long, in the way they're still waiting for you to get over it. The fight isn't over, not by a long shot. And that's where the real challenge lies. It's not just about breaking the silence. It's about changing the narrative. About convincing people that your sacrifice, your service, matters just as much as anyone else's. You've fought in the field, faced the same dangers, the same fears, the same traumas. But for so long, your story has been overlooked, ignored, and dismissed. You didn't just fight for your country, you fought for your place in it too. You think back to the stories you've heard from other women who served. Their stories are just as painful, just as heart-wrenching, but for years, they've stayed hidden. In some ways, their silence has been more oppressive than the wounds they carry. Many of them have struggled for recognition, have begged for the same resources and support as their male counterparts, only to be told that their experiences don't matter. Or worse, they've been told that they don't belong. The fight for recognition is long and grueling. You know it's not something that can be fixed overnight. There are still battles to be fought, systems to be broken. But the more you speak out, the more you realize that you are not alone, and that's the power in it. The more you hear from other women, the more you realize how much common ground there is, how much pain has been swept under the rug, and how much strength there is in sharing those stories, in telling the truth. You receive a message one day that shakes you to your core. It's from someone you don't know, a civilian who's been following the stories of female veterans. She writes to tell you how much your voice has impacted her, how much your story has changed her understanding of what it means to serve. She's never been in the military, but hearing you speak about your experiences has opened her eyes. And for the first time, she says she feels like she can truly understand the struggles you and others like you face. You can't help but feel a rush of emotion. This is why you've been doing it. This is why you've been speaking out, even when it seemed like no one was listening. This is the change you've been fighting for, understanding, empathy, and awareness. It's not about getting a pat on the back or a round of applause. It's about making sure that when people look at you, they see you for who you are. Not just a soldier, but a person, a woman, someone who has fought, bled, and sacrificed for the country she loves. And slowly, the changes begin to take root. Politicians start to take notice. Veterans organizations begin to shift their focus to include the voices of women, to address the specific needs that female veterans face. The conversation shifts, and it becomes clear that the issues you've been highlighting aren't just women's issues. They're veterans' issues. And that's where the true victory lies. It's not about dividing the conversation into categories. It's about recognizing that all veterans, no matter their gender, deserve the same level of respect, care, and support. But even as things start to change, there's still a long way to go. There are still veterans who are slipping through the cracks, still those who feel like their voices don't matter. And that's when you realize that the battle you've been fighting isn't just about recognition. It's about making sure that no one, man or woman, ever has to feel invisible again. You start working with organizations that advocate for veterans' rights, pushing for more legislation that addresses the needs of all veterans, especially those who have been marginalized. You fight for better health care, better mental health services, and more resources for veterans who are struggling. And with each victory, no matter how small, you feel the weight lifting. You feel like you're not just fighting for yourself anymore, you're fighting for all of them, all the voices that have been silenced for so long. You begin to see the ripple effect of your efforts. More veterans are coming forward, more voices are joining the conversation, and the world is beginning to listen. It's not perfect, but it's progress. And that's all you can ask for. You've done your part to start the conversation, to break the silence. Now it's up to the rest of the world to continue it. But for now, as you sit in a room full of fellow veterans, as you share stories, support and encouragement, you can't help but smile. You're not alone anymore, and the world is starting to understand. The movement you've ignited is gaining momentum. With each passing day, more and more voices rise up to join the conversation. It's not just about the veterans now, it's about society, about the entire country, recognizing that its warriors, no matter their gender, deserve to be seen, heard, and valued. The whispers that once mocked you now echo louder with the sound of support, and those who once turned their backs on your struggles now stand beside you, acknowledging your service with the respect you always deserved. But even with these victories, the road ahead isn't without its obstacles. There are still moments when the weight of the past feels too heavy to bear, when the pain of being overlooked, neglected, and underestimated resurfaces. You remember the long days spent fighting for your health, for the recognition of your injuries, for the validation of your experiences. Some days, it still feels like you're fighting alone, like your voice is a small drop in an ocean of noise. But in those moments, you remind yourself, this is bigger than one person. This is a movement, a change, a shift in how the world sees not just female veterans, but all veterans. You continue to share your story, continue to speak out, because you know that it's not just about you. It's about all the women who have been left in the shadows, all the veterans whose sacrifices have gone unnoticed. You think about the veterans who have come to you for advice, for guidance, and you realize something profound. They look to you because you've become a symbol of resilience, of strength, of the fight that never ends. And just like that, the system begins to change. Slowly, but surely. There are more programs specifically designed to help female veterans. Healthcare systems begin to shift their focus, understanding that the needs of women who have served are different from those of their male counterparts. More veterans organizations open their doors to women, offering the resources and support they deserve. It's not perfect yet, but it's a start. And for the first time in a long time, you feel like the system is starting to listen. You think about the women who came before you, the ones whose voices were never heard, the ones who didn't have the chance to speak out, to demand recognition. They fought their own battles in silence, and though they may never know the changes that have come from the efforts you and others have put forth, you know that they paved the way. The movement you've helped create is as much for them as it is for you. They fought, and you fight in their honor, making sure that no one ever has to be overlooked again. But change doesn't just happen in systems or through legislation. It happens on a personal level. It happens in the conversations, the exchanges between individuals, between communities. You hear stories from people in your own town, from strangers who've been touched by your message. One woman tells you about how her daughter, who always dreamed of joining the military but was too afraid of what others would think, finally found the courage to enlist. She credits your story for that courage, and that fills you with a sense of pride you never expected. You've become more than just a voice for veterans. You've become an inspiration, a symbol of what happens when people refuse to stay silent, when they stand up and fight for what's right. And with every new story, every new voice, you understand something fundamental. Change is possible. It's not easy, and it doesn't come without struggle, but it is possible. The work you're doing now will have a ripple effect that extends far beyond your own life. It will inspire future generations of women, of veterans, to rise up and demand the respect and recognition they deserve. You've planted the seed, and now it's growing, spreading across the country, across the world. The fight you started is far from over, but now it feels different. It feels like progress, like hope. There are still struggles ahead, still days when you feel discouraged, but you've made a difference. The voices that were once ignored are now heard. The struggles that were once invisible are now seen. And you've played a part in that. You stand tall now, no longer burdened by the weight of invisibility. Your story is out there, and it's not going away. You are no longer just a soldier. You are a veteran, a woman who has given everything for her country, and you will no longer be silenced. The battle for recognition isn't over, and it never truly ends. But you've come a long way from the days of silence, from the days when you were invisible. Now you walk with your head high, knowing that the world is starting to see you for who you truly are, a warrior, a survivor, and a voice that will continue to fight for change. You know that your journey is far from over, but you're no longer alone. You've built a movement, and together, there's nothing you can't do. The road ahead is still long, but for the first time in years, you feel hopeful. You feel proud, and that's more than enough.